Welcome to the very first episode of Ask a Piano Teacher. Hi, my name's Julie. I've been teaching piano lessons for over 27 years. In this new series, I'm going to be answering your questions about how to play the piano. In this video, I'll be answering the question, why is it so much harder to play the piano with my left hand? I'll be giving you 6 reasons why it's harder to play with your left hand. Plus, I'll be giving you tips on how to improve your playing. Reason number 1, most instruments use a single staff, but the piano uses the grand staff, which means you are reading the treble clef and the bass clef at the same time. If you've ever tried to tap your head while rubbing your tummy, you know how hard it is to have 2 hands doing opposite things. And that's what it's like playing the piano. So here's a tip for you. Be sure when you first start learning a piece, practice your left hand by itself so you can get to know it before putting hands together. Reason number 2, 90% of people are right-handed. So for most of you, you're working with a left hand that is less strong, less coordinated, and slower than your right hand. So here's my tip for that. Try doing finger strengthening exercises to help build strength and coordination in your left hand. Place your curved hand on a solid surface, like your desk, and while keeping all of your fingers touching the surface, lift one finger at a time. You will notice that some fingers are much weaker than others, especially your ring finger, but that's totally normal. It's simply a part of the human anatomy. Once your fingers get stronger, you will have more control over them. Reason number 3, most of us have more experience reading the treble clef than we do the bass clef. Whether it's that music class that you had in elementary school, or you joined the band, choir, or orchestra in middle school, they've pretty much all worked with the treble clef. So for many of us, the only time we read the bass clef is when we're playing the piano. To make playing with your left hand even more complicated, the bass clef does not start off with the same lines and spaces as the treble clef. The bottom line in the bass clef is a G, whereas it's an E in the treble clef. So here's my tip for learning the bass clef. You can use books like this, which are called note spellers. And this is the book I use with my students. I'll put a link in the description down below. But you can search for any note speller. And inside the book is written exercises for you to learn your lines and your spaces. So it's really helpful in improving your ability to read the bass clef. Another option is to use just the old-fashioned flashcards that you get. This is really good to test yourself. Well, how many of these can I read in a minute? And just see if you can get faster and faster as you go along. And make sure when you get the flashcards that you get the kind that has the answer and the key on the back. And that will really help you out. It can also be helpful to learn sayings for the lines and spaces. For the bass clef spaces, I have my students learn all cows eat grass. Now there's a link to this song that I wrote to help people learn the bass clef spaces. It's in the description down below. Reason number 4, the melody is usually not in the bass clef. Many people don't realize it, but after you're done practicing for the day, your brain will continue to practice when you're away from the piano. You may have noticed how you'll find yourself humming the pieces you are working on. But here's the thing, you can only hum notes within your singing range. Since most of us sing in the tenor, alto, or soprano range, it's not as easy to hum the notes in the bass clef. So your left hand notes get less brain practice time away from the piano. So here's my practice tip. Practice your left hand by itself over and over again so that the repetition allows your brain to move your hands with little to no conscious effort. This is called muscle memory. Reason number 5, the bass clef typically has the range from middle C down the keyboard, whereas treble clef has middle C up the keyboard. So in treble clef, a lot of times you're reading the alphabet in alphabetical order, whereas the bass clef, a lot of times you have to read it backwards. So if we started on middle C, we'd have to do it backwards. C, B, A, G, F, E, D, C. Now obviously reading the alphabet backwards is going to be harder than reading the alphabet forwards. So here's my tip. Practice saying the music alphabet backwards, starting with middle C and going down. So in other words, C, B, A, G, F, E, D, C. Do that over and over again so you get that repetition again for your brain to learn it, and your bass clef reading will become much easier. Reason number 6. A lot of people quit the piano because it's so hard to do the left hand and the bass clef, but they give up too early. You really got to work at it. It's like learning a new language. You got to practice every day. You have to be dedicated. Piano playing is hard, it's challenging, but it's so worth it. So please don't give up too early. Just keep working at it, and I promise you it's going to be worth it. Well, that's all for this episode. If you have a question about how to play the piano, leave it in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe for future episodes and keep on playing.